When you are new to cybersecurity, it is natural to imagine that threat detection looks like a clean, obvious moment where a system announces an attack and everyone springs into action. Real detection is usually less dramatic and more like careful decision-making under time pressure, because the earliest signals are often incomplete. You might see a strange login, a burst of traffic, or a new process running, and none of those automatically proves malicious intent by itself. The difference between a minor blip and a major incident often comes down to how quickly a team can evaluate the signal and decide what to do next. This episode is about building that speed in a controlled way, using triage workflows, escalation rules, and coordinated response so that the organization moves quickly without panicking or guessing. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Triage is the discipline of sorting incoming alerts and suspicious events into buckets that reflect urgency, impact, and required action. In medicine, triage helps emergency teams decide who needs immediate attention and who can wait, and the logic is similar in security operations. A security monitoring system can produce a steady stream of signals, and only a small portion will represent real threats. If you treat every signal as equally urgent, you will burn out your analysts and still miss the important ones because they are buried in noise. If you dismiss too many signals too quickly, you create gaps that attackers can exploit, so triage must be both fast and thoughtful. A triage workflow is a repeatable path for moving from alert to decision without reinventing the process every time. It gives responders a consistent set of questions to ask and checks to perform, so the team can act with confidence even when events are confusing. A strong workflow also creates fairness and consistency, which matters because different analysts have different instincts and experience levels. Without a workflow, one person may escalate aggressively, while another may dismiss the same pattern as harmless. With a workflow, the decision is grounded in shared criteria that the whole team understands. A practical triage workflow usually begins with quick context that frames the alert before you dig into deep evidence. Context means understanding what asset is involved, what that asset normally does, and how much harm could occur if it were compromised. A suspicious event on a public-facing server that supports a core business function deserves a different level of urgency than the same event on a lab machine used for testing. Context also includes the identity involved, because a privileged account behaving strangely is more dangerous than a standard user account doing the same thing. When context is gathered early, the rest of triage becomes faster because you know where to focus and what outcome matters. After context, triage shifts into evidence gathering that either strengthens the suspicion or weakens it. Evidence can include authentication records, recent configuration changes, process activity, network connections, and related alerts that might be part of a larger pattern. The point is not to collect everything, but to collect the few pieces that answer the most important question: is this likely to be malicious? And if so, how urgent is it? Speed comes from having a short list of high-value checks that are known to clarify common situations. For example, a burst of failed logins becomes more meaningful if you see that the failures are distributed across many accounts, or if they originate from an unexpected location, or if they are followed by a successful login that leads to privileged actions. A critical part of triage is understanding that the first decision is often about classification, not certainty. You are rarely proving the entire story during triage because that would require deeper investigation and more time. Instead, triage aims to decide whether the event is benign and can be closed, suspicious and should be monitored, or severe and must be escalated immediately. That classification must be defensible, meaning you can explain what evidence led to the decision. When triage is disciplined, the team can move quickly without relying on gut feeling alone. Defensible decisions also build trust across the organization because other teams see that escalation is based on evidence rather than fear. The workflow also benefits from clear, predefined severity criteria that tie technical signals to business impact. Severity is not only about how loud an alert looks, but about the likely consequences if the alert is real. A low-confidence alert on a system that holds sensitive data may still merit urgent escalation because the potential impact is large. A high-confidence alert on a system that is isolated and contains no important data may be handled with controlled urgency rather than panic. When severity criteria are consistent, triage becomes faster because the analyst is not debating the meaning of critical in the moment. Consistency turns severity into a shared language that aligns the team. Escalation rules are the bridge between triage and response, and they prevent delays caused by uncertainty about who should act next. Escalation means moving a case to a higher level of expertise or authority when the risk is high, the evidence is strong, or the impact could be significant. Clear escalation rules define triggers, such as repeated evidence of privilege abuse, signs of lateral movement, suspected data exfiltration, or tampering with security controls. They also define who receives the escalation and what information must be included to make the next step efficient. When escalation rules are vague, analysts hesitate and waste time seeking permission or asking informal questions, and that hesitation gives attackers time to operate. Escalation rules should also account for confidence, not just severity, because both matter for decision-making. Confidence refers to how likely it is that the event is truly malicious rather than a false alarm. A case might be high severity but low confidence, such as a pattern that could indicate compromise, but might also be a legitimate automation job. In that scenario, escalation might still be appropriate, but the response may focus on rapid validation and containment rather than aggressive disruption. Conversely, a case might be high confidence but moderate severity, such as confirmed malware on a single workstation that appears contained. In that scenario, escalation may still occur, but with a response plan matched to the likely impact. Response coordination is what prevents fast detection from turning into chaotic action. Coordination means that when something needs response, the right people are notified in the right order, using agreed channels, and they share a common picture of what is happening. In many organizations, security operations, networking, system administration, and application owners all play roles in response. If those groups are not coordinated, actions can conflict, such as one team rebooting a system while another team is trying to preserve evidence, or one team changing firewall rules without telling application owners. Coordination creates controlled motion instead of frantic motion. A coordinated response also depends on clear roles that are understood before an incident occurs. Someone needs to own the technical investigation, someone needs to own containment decisions, and someone needs to manage communication so that stakeholders stay informed without distracting the responders. Even in small teams, clarity about roles prevents duplication and prevents important steps from being missed. During high-pressure events, people naturally focus on the work they know best, which can create gaps if responsibilities are not explicit. Role clarity allows the team to move faster because each person knows what to do without negotiation. Communication is part of coordination, but it must be purposeful rather than constant. Responders need a way to share updates, request actions, and record decisions so the incident narrative remains coherent. Stakeholders need timely updates that reflect impact and next steps without drowning them in technical noise. Poor communication can cause harmful delays, such as when the right team is not notified about a critical containment action or when leadership learns about an outage from end users rather than from the response team. Good communication reduces confusion and protects trust, which matters during stressful incidents. A key feature of fast detection is the ability to move from alert to hypothesis quickly. A hypothesis is a working explanation of what might be happening, such as a compromised account, a misconfigured service, or an automated job behaving oddly. Triage workflows help form hypotheses because they guide what evidence to check and how to interpret it. As evidence arrives, the hypothesis is refined, and the response becomes more targeted. This approach prevents random action because every step is tied to a working explanation that can be tested. Faster detection often comes from faster hypothesis refinement, not from faster clicking. Speed also improves when the organization reduces friction that slows response decisions. Friction can come from unclear authority to isolate systems, uncertainty about who approves disruptive actions, or fear of breaking production services. Escalation rules and coordination plans reduce this friction by clarifying what actions are allowed under what conditions and who can authorize them. When responders know they have the authority to isolate a workstation showing clear malware behavior, they can act quickly. When they know a critical server requires coordination with an application owner, they can escalate immediately instead of waiting until the situation worsens. Removing decision friction is one of the most practical ways to detect and respond faster. Noise reduction contributes to speed because fewer low-value alerts mean more attention for meaningful signals. If triage is constantly overwhelmed by false positives, analysts become slower, not faster, because they spend their time proving that things are normal. A mature program uses triage outcomes as feedback, adjusting alert logic and adding context so the same false alarm does not repeat endlessly. Over time, the workflow becomes faster because it deals with real issues more often and less with distractions. This creates a virtuous cycle where speed and quality improve together rather than fighting each other. Finally, improvement loops help the organization detect threats faster in the future by learning from what happened in the past. After a meaningful incident or near miss, the team should revisit triage steps, escalation triggers, and coordination practices to see where time was lost. Maybe the initial evidence was hard to gather because logs were missing, or maybe escalation was delayed because the rule was too vague. Those lessons should become concrete changes, such as adding a new triage check, refining a severity threshold, or clarifying who owns a containment action. The fastest teams are not the ones who rush, but the ones who steadily remove obstacles from their process. Detecting threats faster is therefore less about having more alerts and more about having better motion from signal to decision. Triage workflows provide a repeatable path that turns messy signals into consistent classifications. Escalation rules ensure that urgent situations reach the right experts and authorities without delay. Response coordination makes sure action is aligned, evidence is preserved, and stakeholders are informed without chaos. When these pieces work together, the organization becomes quicker, calmer, and more effective under pressure, which is exactly what you want when real threats show up.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.